The wind howled over the open plains like a sorrowful hymn, sweeping across the frozen valley and rattling the shutters of every lonely cabin left. Standing through the bitter winter, inside one of those cabins, Samuel Hargrove sat hunched by the fire, his broad shoulders slumped beneath the weight of exhaustion that no man should bear alone. The soft, broken cry of his newborn echoed in the small wooden room, rising above the crackle of the flames. Samuel looked down at the tiny bundle in his arms. His daughter, barely a week old, her cheeks flushed from hunger. Her mother, Clara, had passed only 3 days after childbirth. Pneumonia, the doctor said, just a bad winter and a broken heart. Samuel didn't believe in curses, but since her last breath, he felt the land itself had turned against him. Snow came harder, nights grew colder, and even the cattle stopped grazing. Every sound outside his cabin walls felt like the world reminding him he was alone now. He had spent 2 days trying to find milk, riding through the storm to nearby ranches, his hat frozen stiff, his horse nearly collapsing in the drifts. Each place turned him away with sympathy in their eyes. No cow fresh enough to milk, no time, no help. Folks out here survived by their own hands, and winter was a cruel thing that spared no one. By the time he returned, his child's cries were weak, and Samuel feared that the last part of Clara he had left was slipping away before his eyes. That night, with snow gathering thick against the window panes and the fire burning low, Samuel rocked the baby close to his chest, whispering promises he didn't know how to keep. "I'll find a way, sweetheart," he murmured hoarsely. "I won't let you go too." But the truth was, he didn't know what to do. He had buried his wife himself in frozen ground beneath the willow tree by the creek, and now he faced the unthinkable, raising a child alone, without milk, without guidance, without hope. Then came the knock. It was faint at first, a soft rap against the door that nearly blended with the storm outside. Samuel stiffened, heart pounding, unsure if he'd imagined it. No one traveled in weather like this. He gently laid his baby in a cradle made from an old apple crate, wrapped her tighter in a blanket, and reached for the rifle, leaning by the door. Another knock came, louder this time. Samuel pulled the door open, and a blast of snow swept in, along with a small figure bundled in a worn coat and a shawl pulled tight around her face. "Mr. Hargrove," a trembling voice called. "It's me, Mary Whitfield, from the Miller place." Samuel blinked through the snow. She was young, barely 20, the daughter of his late wife's friend, living half a mile north. Her cheeks were red from the cold, eyes glistening with worry. "You shouldn't be out here," Samuel said gruffly, though his voice cracked. "Storm's bad." She hesitated, clutching a covered basket in her arms. "I heard about Clara," she said softly, "and the baby." Her words trailed off, full of compassion that broke through his hardened silence. "I thought maybe I could help." He stepped aside, and she hurried in, stamping snow from her boots. The warmth of the fire touched her face, and Samuel realized she had tears frozen on her lashes. She set the basket down on the table and uncovered a small bottle wrapped in cloth. "Goat's milk," she explained. "Our nanny just birthed twins. Mama said it's the closest thing for a newborn. I boiled it to make sure it's clean." For a moment, Samuel couldn't speak. He stared at the bottle as if it were gold. His chest ached with relief so fierce it nearly brought him to his knees. "You rode all this way in the storm for us," she smiled faintly. "No baby should go hungry, Mr. Hargrove." He took the bottle with shaking hands, warmed it near the fire, and carefully brought it to his daughter's lips. The little girl's weak cries softened as she began to drink, her tiny fingers curling around his thumb. Samuel felt something deep within him break open, a rush of gratitude, sorrow, and something else he hadn't felt since Clara died. Hope. He looked up at Mary, who stood quietly by the fire, watching with tender eyes. "Thank you," he said, voice rough. "You've saved her." She shook her head. "Just did what anyone should." But Samuel knew better. Out here, kindness like that was rare. As the storm raged outside, the two of them sat in silence by the hearth. The baby slept soundly in Samuel's arms, her breathing soft as a whisper. Mary glanced at the cradle, then back at the fire, her expression unreadable. "She's beautiful," she said softly. "Looks like Clara." Samuel nodded, swallowing hard. "She's all I got left." Mary hesitated before adding, "You're not alone, you know. Folks think you're strong enough to carry it all, but no one should have to." Her voice carried a quiet strength, and for the first time since Clara's passing, Samuel felt seen, truly seen. The night wore on, the wind easing just a little. Mary stayed until morning, helping keep the fire alive and making sure the baby was fed. When dawn finally came, a pale light breaking over the snow-covered hills, Samuel watched her prepare to leave. "You'll freeze out there," he said, stepping closer. "Let me hitch the wagon. I'll take you home." She smiled, shaking her head. "I'll be fine. Mama will worry if I'm gone too long." But before she turned, she reached out and touched his arm lightly. "You're doing fine, Mr. Hargrove. She's lucky to have you." And then she was gone, stepping into the snow, her figure slowly fading into the white. Samuel stood at the door long after she disappeared. The baby stirred, and he looked down at her tiny face. "You see that, little one?" he murmured. "Ah, that's what kindness looks like. That's what your mama would have wanted." He felt the warmth of the morning sun touch the frozen fields, and for the first time, he believed they might make it through the winter. He didn't know what the days ahead would bring, but one thing was certain. The storm had brought him something he never expected. Not just milk for his child, but a spark of grace in a world that had nearly gone cold. He turned back into the cabin, holding his daughter close, and whispered to the fire, "We'll be all right now. We'll be all right."